Hi, I'm C.C. Péan, and this is Reclaiming Your Health.
Good evening, everyone. I am C.C. Péan, and welcome to Reclaiming Your Health. So good to see you all this evening. I'm going to let you know right now, I've been having a whole bunch of personal summers happening. So if you see me pass out midway of the show, I forewarned you. I'm in Florida. It's about 90 degrees right now. It went up to 92 today. The air is on, but for some reason, it's not registering for me. So I just asked my husband to bring down a fan to try to work this out. So I'm just letting you know, if I pass out, you know what happened. Okay, so tonight we are doing a spin on an Italian dish. We are making polenta. We are going to make a Habesha spiced mushroom ragu over polenta. Now, polenta is basically cornmeal. And one of the things that I've talked about is how in so many different cuisines around the world, we all have some like real basic ingredients. And this particular ingredient it's considered kind of like a peasant food, but it is available everywhere. It's inexpensive, and this is the Italian interpretation of it. Now, one of the things about cornmeal you should know is there are different grades or grains. How should I say that? Different textures. That's the best way to say it. There are different textures of cornmeal. There is an extremely fine cornmeal, which is what I'm most familiar with. That's how I make my cornmeal porridge. That's what I'm going to actually use for this tonight. Not only is it smoother, it has much more of a smooth result in the end, but it cooks faster. And so that's why I like to use it. Now, my husband's heritage is Haitian, and they make something called maïs moulin, a moulu, I believe that's how you pronounce it. And you can make that with all types of different textures as well, but you tend to find a more coarse texture. At the end of the day, cornmeal is delicious and it's extremely filling. And so that's why it's one of those dishes that wherever you go across the diaspora, people are eating it, and international cuisine, people are eating it. So I'm going to show you the cornmeal I'm using today is super fine. Look at that. So this cooks in 15 to 20 minutes, it's cooked. Now, one of the things that is done in Italian cuisine when they fix this, a lot of times they will allow it to cool down, like in a square shape or a cylindrical shape, and they'll slice it and then they pan fry it. So that's that's one of the interpretations for the Italian cuisine. But you can also have it Italian cuisine and it's prepared just like grits. It's prepared just like a porridge, like a soft meal. That's how we're doing it tonight, in interest of time. In addition to that, we are going to do, look at these beautiful mushrooms. We are going to do a medley of mushrooms. I have cremini, I have white button, I have some maitake, I have some trumpet mushrooms. All of these are going to make a delicious ragu. The reason I chose the different mushrooms is for different textures. I don't want it to be mushy. I know some people are funny about mushrooms, but I've encouraged you to try different mushrooms because they have different textures and they have, I'm perspiring, y'all. They have different textures and it's great to mix them up. Some people don't like mushrooms because they feel like they're slimy. I'm here to tell you there are mushrooms that are not slimy at all. They're meaty. And some of those are like the cremini mushrooms. I've shared with you all, when you buy mushrooms, be sure to store them in a paper bag because they last longer. Something you also need to check for with mushrooms when you buy them, smell them. They should not smell fishy at all. If they do, they're spoiling. Do not eat them. Do not take that chance. Okay, so what I'm going to get started on now is the polenta, because that's going to take a bit to cook while we do the mushrooms. So let me just turn this on. And I do mine a little differently because I put onions and I put garlic in it. So it's a little backwards, but the key to making your polenta, your cornmeal, whatever you call it, to making it smooth is a whisk. Okay, so watch this. The first thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna cut up a little bit of onion because I like my polenta to not only have flavor, but I like my little chunks of sauteed onion in there and my little chunks of garlic. So the first thing I'm going to do is just cut up some onion. You obviously don't have to do this. You don't have to put onion in it if you don't want to. If you're somebody who has an issue with the texture of onions, or you can use onion powder, of course. What we're going for ultimately is the flavor. I don't have issues with texture, so that's why I'm cutting it up. I'm going to drop a tablespoon of my plant butter in there. And this is already melting and sizzling. I'm going to drop my onion in there. I forgot to bring over my sprig of thyme. Okay, so that's cooking up. The reason I'm also putting this onion and garlic in there is because it infuses the flavor all the way through our polenta. When you cook things like this, unless you season them, they're kind of blah. And I like to build layers of flavor. And I've shared with you all, I like to do that because in building layers of flavor, the less need you have for salt. So this is sizzling beautifully. Now I'm just gonna got my garlic. It's gonna go straight in there. This is browning beautifully. Already smells wonderful. Okay, now I'm going to take my cornmeal. I have a cup of cornmeal. Just mixing that in. The butter and the onions. Kind of toasting the cornmeal a bit, actually, is what this is doing. Coating the cornmeal with some of that butter and the onion and the garlic. Okay, to this, we are adding low sodium vegetable broth, 3 cups of that, and a cup of plant-based half and half. Okay, I'm not using creamer, I'm using half and half. If you use creamer, they tend to have sweetness to it. We don't want that. Okay, so that's toasted. Probably can go just a little while longer on this. You should start to smell. You can smell the toasted corn. That's when you know that you're ready to go to the next level. You know, there are dishes on the continent that you actually eat it just like this. Not this particular thing, but a cassava, brown cassava called gari in Ghana. So while we're adding liquid to this, there are people that eat grains like this, finely ground grains, just like this. It's toasted. Okay. So now I'm going to add my 3 cups. And while I do that, I'm going to whisk. I'm whisking my 3 cups of my low sodium vegetable broth And now I'm putting a cup of my plant-based half and half. And I've shared with you my favorite half and half to use is Ripple. It is delicioso. So I'm going to turn this up a little bit to get it to boil. But the whisk is so key. I've tried different ways. I've tried actually boiling the water first and then whisking the cornmeal in. I've tried taking some liquid into the cornmeal like in a separate container and making almost like a sludge, like a loose paste. That's another way to do it. But this way, actually, I think this works really, really well. It's one of the easier ways to do it. Yes, making this, you are, standing here tending to this, but it's worth the effort. So while I'm waiting for that to boil, I'm going to get started on cutting up the onions for my ragu. I'm just going to cut a little more of this onion because it's such a big onion. And I've shared with you all, I like all kinds of onions. I don't have like a particular onion that I say you have to use with dishes. The only thing that I stick to with a particular onion is like, if I'm doing like Mexican cuisine, I tend to, if I'm doing something raw, I tend to use red onion. But other than that, unless if you have a favorite, that's fine. But for me, I am just kind of like whatever onion I feel like, whatever onion is on sale, that's what I use. So we've got these onions aside. We're going to do our garlic directly in the pot. This is starting to boil. Okay, you got to keep moving with this because what will happen is it will start to stick. In that short time, it started to stick. So I'm going to go all the way around, pressing the whisk to the bottom of the pot, making sure I'm loosening up everything. You want smooth, creamy polenta. You want every one of these grains to be bathed in this creamy mixture. And you can see already, you're seeing the cornmeal come through. That lets you know that it's cooking. It's cooking actually lovely. Do I have any cornmeal fans out there? This is one of those things that people are really like, they either absolutely love cornmeal or they hate it. I love it. I grew up eating one of my mom's things that she would do. My mother was from Guyana, and we used to have cornmeal porridge, and she would make it with cinnamon and nutmeg. She would put golden raisins in it, and it's something that's very nostalgic for me. I love it. I love it. But I know some people like really do not get down with any kind of porridge thing, especially cornmeal porridge. So you see how this is cooking up? This is cooking up very nice. I'm going to drop the temperature down just a bit. So I want it to kind of down. Slowly cook. I had it up to get it to like boil. But now that it's done that, ooh, this smells so good already. Beautiful, beautiful cornmeal. See how that's come together already? And like I said, if you wanted to make it more along the lines of a traditional Italian polenta, or if you wanted to kind of make it really pretty for plating, I would suggest that you put this in a mold, like a square or a loaf pan or something like that, and you allow it to cool. Once it's completely cooled, you would slice it and then you could grill it, put some nonstick oil, nonstick spray in a pan, and then just lightly grill it on both sides, get a little bit of crispness on it, and then you would ladle this ragu over it, put some bright greens on it, and it would be a beautiful dish. Okay, so this is thickened up quite a bit. I'm still stirring. This kind of reminds me of risotto. Risotto is one of those dishes that it's delicious and it's creamy. It's a bit of work, but it's worth it. And you all see how easily this came together. All right. So I'm going to move this off of this heat. I'll bring over my other pan so we can get started on our ragu. Beautiful, 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 creamy polenta. Let's move this pot over off the heat. All righty. So now what we're going to do is we're going to focus on our ragu. That's going to continue to cook. I have it on a low heat over there. So when I make my ragu, I don't cut up my mushrooms really, really fine because I want it to be kind of chunky. If there's one thing you know about mushrooms is that they really do break down. These mushrooms have all been kind of brushed off with a napkin. I don't wash them because mushrooms retain water. And if you do that, you are going to have some mushy mushrooms. Let's pop these out. So we're using some white buttons. We're using some cremini. We have some maitake. We have some trumpet. I think pretty much any mushroom works in this, except for shiitake. Shiitake are beautiful mushrooms, but they have a really unique flavor. And I don't think it would really work with this, so we're not going to use maitake. We're not going to use shiitake in this. Let's do one more white. Now we're going to do some of our cremini. Portobellos would also be really nice in this. I would use smaller ones, which I'm going to tell on myself right now. I really don't know if there's a difference between cremini and portobello, but if they are the same thing, definitely use the smaller ones just because you're thinking about the final appearance of your dish and you want some uniformity. You don't want like huge slices of mushroom and then itty bitty slices. You want it to kind of have a uniformity to it. That's warming up. Almost done. We're doing about 4 cups. About 4 cups of mushrooms. And we've got our trumpets. Let's see how we cut this in. Cut this in 4s. Okay. And we also have some maitake. I'm going to wait until the last minute. I'm not going to cut these up. These are just going to go in there because I don't want them to disintegrate. Okay, so now let's turn up the heat. Still okay. Nice and creamy. And so you see so far we use 1 tablespoon of the plant butter. I'm going to put a tablespoon in here. What I typically do, like right before I serve my polenta, I will put another tablespoon of plant butter in there just to give it a little bit more creaminess. Okay, so once again, we are going to put our onions. Put our onions in there. Cooking beautifully. We're going to use 3 to 4 cloves of garlic. You have not eaten a dish until you put garlic in it. You have to have garlic. That's one of our, we're building our flavors. That was 2. We're going to do 2 more. There we go. And it smells lovely. And now what we're going to do, people, is we're simply going to drop our mushrooms in this pan. So we have our crimini, we have our white, we even have our trumpet in there that I put into quarts. And we're just going to let this saute. What's going to happen is the steam from this pan, the heat is going to start to break these mushrooms down. Now, we are doing this tonight with one of the agave spices, which is the Habesha spice. But this is just as delicious if you just wanted to do some fresh herbs. I would season these like I would if I were cooking chicken. So like the poultry seasoning, I would use sage, I would use thyme, I would use rosemary. All of those things would be delicious on this as well. If you don't want to use the Habesha spice, I don't know why you wouldn't want to, but if you did not want to, this would be just as delicious with your garlic, your onions, and your fresh herbs. Or even your dried herbs. You can use them dried as well. I tend to like fresh herbs. Okay, I'm going to put 1 more pat of my plant butter in there to help us along. Turn this heat down just a little bit. And I suggested you use a nonstick pan because you don't want these mushrooms to stick and burn. Now, the other thing is you determine how long you want to cook them. I know people that love raw mushrooms. I don't. Those people that love raw mushrooms would probably saute this for like, a minute or 2. I really like mine to break down almost like a stew. So I'm going to let these cook a little while longer. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cover this just to let a little steam form and cook through there. While we're doing that, I'm going to clean up a little bit. No one's asking me any questions. Is anyone there this week? Has anyone joined us? I've really got to do better with letting people know about the show. Now, all of us are weeks get away from us, our time gets away from us. And I don't know if you all are aware or not, but in case you missed one of these episodes, you can always go to YouTube and look at Reclaiming Your Health, search for Reclaiming Your Health, and you can find the episodes there. All right, you see that steam that just came off? Beautiful. This is really breaking down beautifully. So at this point, I'm going to add these mushrooms. I'm just going to break them in half, but I'm not going to cut them. Drop these in here. I'm going to cover it up again. Something crazy is going on with my computer, so pardon me for a moment. This is a rough day, y'all. Computer's tripping. I'm having an extended personal summer. Woo! All right. Oh my goodness. It is acting up again. See, this is starting to really break down very nicely. Cover it up again, let it steam through. Let me step away for a moment and grab some dried thyme. I do not know what is going on here. I'm going to grab some dried thyme. I'll be right back. Now, I just got through talking about fresh thyme, but because I did not add it early in the process, I'm going to use some dried thyme. So I'm going to use about a teaspoon's worth. Just going to sprinkle that over. Toss this up a little bit. This is looking lovely, people. Okay, now it's time for me to use a bit of my Habesha spice. And that's this one right here, off habefoods.com. Now, depending on your tolerance for heat, you could use a tablespoon. I'm using about a tablespoon and a half. And now I'm just gonna toss this until it is well incorporated. And I'm going to taste for salt. We used a little bit of vegetable broth in the polenta, but we haven't used any salt whatsoever in our mushrooms. So I'm going to taste this and see what we need, if we need. Definitely need some salt, but not much. Not much. I'm going to turn this off and take a little bit of salt. I'm probably going to use about a teaspoon of salt on this. One of the great things about mushrooms is it really absorbs flavor. So a little bit goes a long way. Let me taste again. Much better. Much better. One of the last things I like to do is add a little bit of scallion into it for flavor. I don't like it to cook down really. I like to add it close to the end of my cooking. I think sometimes when you cook scallions or green onions, it kind of takes away the flavor. And what am I going to say again? Texture, texture, texture. It also makes this look prettier because you got all these dark mushrooms and, you know, we want to make sure that what we're cooking not only tastes good, is good, but it looks good as well. So folk, you know what time it is. I'm happy with the texture of my polenta. So I'm not going to add any more plant butter to it. I think it's fine just the way it is. We are going to plate now. I'm going to take some of this polenta and put it right in the center of the bowl. Right in the center. And I guarantee you, this is one of those things, it is definitely filling. I'm going to use one of these spoons for better control. And so your mushrooms are going to go right in the center of this. You've got this bunch that we didn't break up. We kept it together. That looks so pretty. Got a couple of those bunches that are going to go in here. See, we have the white. I put a couple of these trumpets on there. Such a simple, elegant, tasty. Simple, elegant, tasty dish. Oh my. That is lovely. And finally, I love a beautiful microgreen. I'm giving you all a break from my micro cilantro. And I'm going to use a pea shoot. Just going to place it just like so on top of it. And folk, there you have Habesha spiced mushrooms over creamy polenta. So we have brought the diaspora to a Italian favorite. Instead of the beef ragu or the meat ragu, some people use a pork ragu, we have used mushrooms instead. Isn't that lovely? It is, it is, it is. So thank you for joining me. I'm going to nam this and kill it once I get off camera. But thank you for joining us on, thank you, Melissa. Thank you for joining us on Reclaiming Your Health. We will see you all next week, Tuesday. Hey, Leah. Thank you for joining. Please make this dish. Let me know how it came out for you. Let me know if you did any variations on it. As always, my spices are available at afkavefoods.com. Thank you so much, all of you who have been supporting me and purchasing the spices. These spices were made with love. They represent the African diaspora and world cuisine. And I encourage you, and I always encourage people to really try different things and rediscover your roots, wherever you may be from. Rediscover your roots. Start cooking more traditional foods. Eat foods that are closer to its natural state because that is what's best for you. And see you next Tuesday. Bye-bye.